The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio for Tuesday, March 18th. I'm your host, Andy McNeil, and joining me, as always, Nick Martin from Daily Faceoff. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. As you know, I've had a really hectic couple of days here. Just moving, had some stuff going on the weekend, so it's been super busy, but excited to get into it.
Yeah, I had a hectic weekend, but of a different kind. I did drywall and painting all weekend, so that was awesome. Love doing that. Love slanging around those drywall sheets and hanging them by myself. That's always fun. But built a little jig, to help me get things done. But anyway, I am looking forward to today's show. We've got a big slate in the NHL and a big week. I mean, we are in the last month of the NHL regular season now, which ends on April 18th. Today is March 18th. So exactly 1 month away from the end. A big slate today. We've got the Ottawa Senators taking on the Montreal Canadiens, both teams coming off 2-day breaks here. The Calgary Flames on the second half of a back-to-back in New York, taking on the Rangers, who are actually playing their third game in 4 nights. The Islanders and Penguins going head-to-head. Pittsburgh has a one-day rest advantage in that matchup. The Red Wings still trying to get into the wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference, currently out of it right now. They're in Washington taking on the Capitals. The Caps have a one-day rest advantage coming back from a 2-day break. The St. Louis Blues playing their third game in 4 nights against the Nashville Predators, who are coming off a 2-day break. And Anaheim and Dallas going head-to-head. Seattle and Chicago, the Blackhawks have a one-day rest advantage. And then we've got 2 late games here with the Utah Hockey Club here in Edmonton taking on the Oilers, who are back from their 4-game Eastern Conference road trip. They're playing their 4th game in 6 nights. And the Winnipeg Jets in Vancouver taking on the Canucks, who are playing their 3rd game in 4 days. I should add that Seattle will play. This is the first half of a back-to-back for the Kraken. There's only 2 games in the NHL on Wednesday, but they'll be in Minnesota tomorrow night. So I guess that could play into their goaltending decision. But I don't really think it matters right now for the Seattle Kraken, who are well out of a playoff race. Not sure, they haven't confirmed anybody yet, but Spencer Knight will start for the Blackhawks. All right, so 9 games on the slate. Nick, I'm going to let you pick which one we should start with first.
Okay, I think let's start with the Detroit Red Wings versus the Caps there. I think it's obviously right now fun to kind of cover the chase here from Ovechkin. And I also have a prop I like in that game.
Yeah, speaking of the chase, I see here at Pinnacle Sports, will Alex Ovechkin break Wayne Gretzky's goal record this season? Must play next scheduled game. Yes, minus 195. No, plus 162. So the odds are in Ovechkin's favor in terms of breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record right now. What do you think about this game, Nick? Logan Thompson is going to start for the Capitals. That much has been confirmed. It looks like Peter Mrazek will get the start for the Red Wings, and we now know that Dylan Strome will be back in the lineup. He was questionable due to an illness, but that has been cleared up, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot to kind of back this trend of the Caps coming out in the first period specifically and looking really lethargic. I think overall, it is honestly crazy how many games they've found ways to win. I'm really intrigued to see if they kind of have a different gear here as we get into the playoffs, because I think defensively they've looked very hit or miss for a pretty big sample play here. They've done a great job finishing chances. They get great goaltending. But I think we could see a desperate Red Wings side come out here and get some offense early. that's been a really consistent trend in Caps games. They've had really bad starts and they just can't seem to solve it. So I think it's not the worst spot overall to take a look at Detroit, but I like the first period in particular. They're at plus 128 to win the first period, and that's just the two-way line. So you'll push if it's a tie, and I think that's a pretty good bet here. So yeah, that's the first one I wanted to start with there. And then I think the other looks, we've talked about it a lot, but I think Ovechkin to score the last goal is always an appealing look right now if you think the Caps have a good chance of winning. There can be some time to try to get those bets in live too, depending on which sports books you're with. But yeah, I think overall we might see the Red Wings look pretty scrappy in this game and generate some offense.
Yeah, Ovechkin at plus 121 to score an anytime goal tonight, over 3.5 shots on goal, minus 138 to the over. He's been shooting the puck a lot as of late, especially, and he's pretty much scoring in every other game. Yeah, I do like that strategy as we've talked about before. Ovi did score in his last game, and how many does that give him now?
He's looking like he's running out of gas a little bit. He's finding ways.
87.
Like, it's impressive how much he's finding ways to get these goals. Got a nice through the legs tip in San Jose, but overall, like it has been a lot more where he's just looking flat, and they're kind of finding ways to try to get him the puck, and he's not been as good at 5-on-5. Because I think that's the part that kind of sucks is people weren't as locked in earlier in the year when he was actually playing pretty good. Like at 5-on-5, he'd been a little more of a difference maker than last year and some of the other seasons. So it kind of sucks now that everyone's paying attention to the chase, and it's kind of seems like he really is just out there to try and get these goals. But yeah, anyways, still really hope he gets it done, and hopefully he can elevate his game in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's season's winding down, of course, but there's still quite a bit of time here left for him to get it done. Big matchup tonight between the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens just 1 point back of the New York Rangers for that second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. The Sens have gone on a bit of a run here, 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. The Canadiens actually 7-1-2 in their last 10. So pretty similar records as of late for these two teams, but 6 points separate them. So either way, a big game, especially for Montreal, who is trying to squeeze into that playoff spot. You covered this game a little bit over at Daily Faceoff today. What are you seeing here from a betting perspective?
Yeah, my favorite bet is backing Suzuki and Caulfield each to get a point at even money. I've been playing this one a lot. It's been good to us, and that line is just completely tilting the ice right now. They have generated 62.3% expected goal share since the trade deadline, and I think they've looked pretty dominant, and they've been making a lot of plays that I think are likely to be finished at a high rate. Obviously, that's kind of any play that ends on Caulfield's stick has a good chance of finishing. But yeah, they both recorded at least 1 point in 8 of the last 10 matchups. So what I mean by that is this play specifically would have cashed in 8 of the last 10. And Ottawa is a pretty strong defensive opponent. They've been, middle of the pack in most analytics recently and are getting pretty good goaltending. But I think given the recent hit rate and how good Suzuki and Caulfield have looked, I'm pretty happy to take this one at even money. Caulfield's kind of been our guy lately, so I'm happy to keep riding with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Big matchup for sure. I want to talk about the St. Louis Blues and the Nashville Predators. I know we're both on the same side here, but the Blues at a rest disadvantage, as I said before. The Predators have had 2 days off, so a bit of an edge there for Nashville. But there's just such a big gap between these two teams in terms of scoring rates right now. Not so much the underlying metrics. Nashville, still shows up pretty well in terms of their 5-on-5 expected goals percentage, but the scoring rates, particularly at 5-on-5. Big gap right now. The Preds allowing a lot of goals. St. Louis has been one of the best offensive teams as of late. So I think this currently minus 111. It has moved around a little bit this morning, but the St. Louis Blues money line at minus 111, I think, is a strong play here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I mean, I think everyone will. I'm not surprised to see According to the Action Network's bet percentages, 92% of the bets are on St. Louis. 92% of the total bets, not the money. But I still think overall this price looks too short to me. The Blues have been playing some really good hockey, and we've seen the Predators be overvalued all season long. It feels like odds makers are having a really time adjusting to their disappointing offensive play and the shaky goaltending they're getting. Saros has been way worse than anyone would have expected, and I think it's been a big reason for the Predators' bad results. If you'd faded the Predators in every single game this season, you would have made 32% ROI, so excellent there. And I just feel like a lot of the same factors that have kind of caused them to be overvalued are still in place. So I think there's definitely value here backing the Blues. I've had a hard time kind of seeing where this number is coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to pull up here what I have up to date as of right now. But Nashville, as we've talked about a lot on this show, they've been the least profitable money line bet this season, and that is, I believe that is still the case. Yep. Yeah, if you bet on the Predators to win every game this season, you'd be down just over 21 units. So pretty terrible showing from them this season. That was as of Monday. I don't think anybody has caught them. No, the San Jose Sharks are the next worst team on the money line, but they're down around 16 units. Of course, certainly not overvalued at all, but not as valued by the betting market as the Nashville Predators are.
Yeah, I just realized too. The bets we gave out on the Predators to go under 99.5 points, I think, have mathematically cashed too. So those probably won't get processed till the end of the year, but that's a pretty big sign of how horrible they've been when you're already cashing an under on their points total with a third of the year or a quarter of the year to go or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And next up on the slate here is the Anaheim Ducks and the Dallas Stars. Mikko Rantanen, I noticed his shot volume has sort of fallen off since joining the Stars here. Of course, when he played those 13 games with the Hurricanes, we talked about it quite a bit on this show. He obviously wasn't scoring, but he was shooting a lot and was definitely unlucky not to be scoring. Now he's not shooting so much. He does have 2 goals so far with the Dallas Stars, and I'm sure he's going to continue to get prime chances. But I wonder if maybe loading that top line up with Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson and Rantanen is, I don't know, maybe not the best approach. Maybe you could get more out of Rantanen on a different line.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely. I was a schmuck and bet him to get 3 shots on Sunday. He might have finished with 0. He finished with 1 or 0, I think. So not a good look there. But yeah, I agree. They kind of haven't quite found their chemistry yet. We'll see. I'm guessing they'll probably stick with it for a little bit. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of good ways to configure that top 9.
Yeah, finished with 2 shots actually in that game. He had 4 shots in the first game against Edmonton, a goal and an assist. The goal came on the power play. He scored the next night in Vancouver. That was on 2 shots as well, and he's had 2 shots in 3 consecutive games. But I just wonder if maybe there's not a better spot in the lineup for him to kind of carry things instead of being on that top line with Hintz and Robertson. But you like a play in this game, and it is involving Thomas Harley, is it not?
Yeah, I like Harley to get 3 shots at plus 130. I think it's obviously playing him to get a point has been a really popular play lately. You were on this a lot before the prices really got adjusted. But I think backing him to get a shot in this specific matchup versus the Ducks is a good play given the long number. We've seen the Ducks kind of all year here produce such good game scripts for opposing shooters because they always seem to hang around, or a lot of the time, not as much the last couple games here, but they just hang around with their stellar goaltending, but they really love to just get caved in. They've given up the most shots against per 60 this whole season, most shots against per 60 over the last 10 games. And I think it's a good time to get on Harley here. He's gone over 2.5 in 3 of the last 5 games, averaging 5.8 shot attempts. Obviously, his shot attempts are a little less likely to get through coming from the blue line, a lot of those are more likely to miss or get blocked or whatever. But I think in the specific matchup versus the Ducks, that's a good price. I think we'll see that top power play have a good night. I think we'll see at even strength, he should get plenty of time, plenty of touches working in the offensive zone. So overall, I think that number is just a little too long, and this is a good way to target him right now.
I've been thinking about it all morning, and I actually do like him to get a point here against Anaheim. I think the Stars are going to have a good night offensively, and the price at Pinnacle, I think, is pretty reasonable, all things considered. It is a good price compared to some of the other sports books out there, which is usually the case. He's listed at minus 138 to get a point right now. So I think I'm going to add that as we get going into the next game here. I mean, he's got points. He hasn't scored points in 2 consecutive games, but he's got points in 11 out of his last 16, going all the way back to January 31st. So, I mean, good chance he is involved in the scoring here tonight.
Yeah, and those last 2 games were a little tougher. I know they did score 3 versus the Avs, but they played the Avs and then got shut down entirely by the Jets there. So
yeah
definitely
he did have 4 shots against Winnipeg. So I mean, still effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's been so good since Heiskanen's gone down. So yeah, definitely like targeting him in this matchup.
What do we have next here on the slate here? Anything else you want to talk about before we move on to the 2 late games that I have plays in?
No, let's go to the late games. Those are both good ones. So yeah, excited to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so the Oilers, they have won consecutive games for the first time since the end of January. They defeated the Islanders on a 2-goal performance from Leon Draisaitl. He scored both of Edmonton's goals, including the overtime winner. And then they followed that up with a 3-1 win over the Rangers, who started Igor Shesterkin on back-to-back days. But yeah, it's I guess good signs for Edmonton that they got solid goaltending performances in back-to-back games for the first time in what feels like forever. Stuart Skinner really needed to rebound, and he played well against the Rangers on Sunday. He stopped 21 of 22 shots after a really brutal stretch for him. They didn't have Zach Hyman on Sunday, but he was a full participant at the morning skate that day. So I would expect, if it hasn't been confirmed already, I would expect him to be close to returning on Tuesday. And Chris Knobloch, the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, said that while they might not get Matthias Ekholm back in the lineup in time for this matchup tonight against the Utah Hockey Club, they do expect him back no later than Thursday's game. So that's a good sign as well. But yeah, they you know, I mean, I've been pretty hard on Edmonton, but it's from a betting perspective, right? They, like I said, they've priced like the best team in the league on most nights. It makes it really hard to bet on them, and their results just haven't matched that whatsoever. So, I mean, I guess, we're right to be hard on them, but they're still at 5-on-5 doing a decent job controlling play. It's just, the goal differential has just been brutal, right? They've got the 3rd worst goal share in the NHL since February 1st at 5-on-5. Sorry. And they've only got 16 games to clean that up and kind of get going in the right direction heading into the playoffs here. I mean, they're still among the Stanley Cup contenders as far as the betting market goes. They've got the 3rd best odds to win the Stanley Cup right now at 7-1. They're plus 375 to win the Western Conference. That's 2nd behind the Dallas Stars. So I guess, the betting market hasn't totally lost faith in this team. But Utah, I mean, they're a tough team, right? Edmonton has beaten them twice this year already. They won 4-1, 4-3 in overtime in the first game, 4-1 in the home game on when was that? I don't have it down here, actually, what date it was, but it was, kind of recent, I think, at the end of December, if I recall correctly. We talked about Utah to maybe make the playoffs last week on Future Files. Well, they are a bit shorter now. They were plus 425 when we talked about it, but unfortunately, they did not sweep their next 3 games like we had maybe expected them to.
Got the big one over the Canucks though in regulation.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's how it's come down a little here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're feeling pretty good. Like the main take out of that was that the Canucks were overvalued. They're now up at plus 140, thanks to that big loss on Sunday versus Utah. So I still think the Blues and Utah are really going to give them a good run. I think they're both better teams right now. So that ground could get closed pretty quickly. And the Flames, I know we didn't really touch on the Flames, but they are falling apart. You've been pretty low on them all year, but this last stretch is, I think they've gone from kind of leaning a little too heavily on their goaltenders. You know, most of their wins obviously came down to Wolves play, but the last bit, it's just felt like if he's not going to completely steal them a game, they have no chance. And they're dead last in expected goals over the last 10 games, which I think seems pretty fair. Games like last night versus Toronto have kind of been the going rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Utah, they're just 2 points back of the Canucks right now, both with 67 games played. So it's probably going to go right down to the wire. They don't have an overly tough schedule. They've got I believe 16 games remaining, or 15 games remaining, sorry, and only 6 of those are against teams that are currently in a playoff position. So not the toughest schedule, that's for sure. But they are plus 400 to make the playoffs currently at Sports Interaction. So they're going to have to steal some wins here in some of these games that they're not supposed to win. Right. So this would be a good chance for them to do that. But it's going to be a tough test here against the Oilers, who have really struggled to score as of late. And that's kind of been the problem for Utah as well. I mean, Clayton Keller's the only player on the team averaging more than a point per game this season. He's got 24 goals and 51 assists in 66 games. He shares the team lead in goals with Edmonton native Dylan Guenther, who has played 11 fewer games. But he actually, leads the team in power play goals at 11 and game winners with 8. So he has had a really good season scoring wise. Outside of that injury stretch that he had. But yeah, Utah, I mean, I guess, as of late, they've been better, but overall this season, they're among the top bottom 10 overall this season, they're among the 10 least profitable money line bets. And they haven't really been a good bet as a favorite. They've been even worse as an underdog, but they've been, I guess, better as an underdog on the road. They've won 9 out of 22 games as road underdogs this season. So slightly below or slightly in the red, but I think they're down just around minus 1.22 units or something like that. So not that far off of being a profitable road underdog bet. But I mean, you probably know where I'm going with this one. Leon Draisaitl, anytime goal, plus 113 at Pinnacle. I think that is a really attractive price, given that he has just been on a tear as of late. I mean, all season long, he needs just one more goal to hit the 50 goal mark for the 4th time in his career. And he has scored at least 1 goal in 15 of his last 22 games. So that far exceeds his current odds heading into this game. I think that's around 68% of the time he's scored a goal dating back to January 18th. So I think I'm going to, go with the obvious choice here and bet on Draisaitl to score an anytime goal at plus 113. I'm a little bit surprised by this point, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I can't remember when the last time we broke this down was. It was within the last 10 days. But yeah, if he continues to score at even a remotely comparable rate to what he has this season, anything past even money is just absurd. And Utah's, I think, a tougher than average matchup, but not insane. And yeah, I feel like you just keep riding this. He's getting such good looks. I think they're so reliant on him and McDavid right now. They're not getting, very convincing play from many other forwards at all.
No.
And he just keeps pouring them in. It's especially when I feel like you've done good to just keep hitting on these and hitting on these. It makes it easy to just be like, whatever.
Yeah,
this is just it's just still too long. So yeah,
as I said, it's almost on most nights it's impossible to justify betting on Edmonton to win games. And so what do? You rely on the guys that are showing up every night, and that's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And I mean, I think it would be stupid to go any other route, right? It just doesn't make sense to get off of that strategy when it's been working so well for me all season long.
Yeah. And Utah's been like, I have hopes for our bets or for our like futures that they can win this game. I do still think they've been really scrappy. You kind of talked about how they've underperformed in the betting market, but I think to some extent part of that has been that odds makers are actually giving them some credit based off their underlying play.
Yeah.
Kind of expected better. And then I think the other part of it is obviously when Connor Ingram was there, he really underachieved. With a very justifiable excuse. But I think now when they're really leaning heavily on Vejmelka here, it's kind of helped a little more because, I mean, Ingram was getting market respect because he was so damn good last year. So I see it. I think everyone was surprised that he had the season that he did have. But yeah, it's I still think Utah is a pretty legitimately good team. That's the other reason I want to see them get this final wild card spot, because I actually think they're a pretty scrappy and fun team to watch. So would I rather watch them probably lose to the Jets than the Flames just get completely crushed by the Jets? I think so. So yeah, I feel like they're a pretty easy side to root for.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as, getting some respect from the betting market, I think they are getting it here today. Currently at Pinnacle Sports, the Oilers only a minus 135 favorite. Utah coming back on the other side at plus 122. So that has come down a bit in favor of the Utah Hockey Club. And I mean, if you had told anybody at the start of the season that we would be a month out of the playoffs and the Edmonton Oilers would be a minus 135 favorite versus what is a non-playoff team right now, I think you would have got laughed at, because the Oilers, I mean, finally, I guess the betting market is starting to view this team as they should, and maybe down the stretch here there might be some actual opportunities to bet on the Oilers to win games if this is the way it goes. So could be a good opportunity, not tonight, but in the future, maybe tonight, I don't know, but in the future could be an opportunity to buy low on this team on the money line. But just one more game to talk about: the Winnipeg Jets in Vancouver taking on the Canucks. We've kind of railed on the Canucks a lot, as I'm sure a lot of hockey shows have this season. You are covering this game over on Canucks Army. I have a play on this game, but give me your thoughts on this one from a betting perspective.
Yeah, in terms of sides and totals, on my first glance, I was kind of with you. I think before the movement, I thought the Jets were probably the play. The Canucks, they've started to look a little more respectable. I think the way to play them right now that I was probably going to settle on is just backing Quinn Hughes in some capacity, because he's been so good since he's come back into the lineup. And I think it's so easy to pump his tires kind of regardless of how you break it down this year. But I think what's most incredible is he's come in and out. He's never really been at 100% since around December. And every time he jumps back in the lineup, he looks so good. And he's been such a difference maker. And you look at his production compared to anyone else on the team as a defender, and it's just ridiculous. So I don't know if he's going to end up with enough games played to win the Norris. I think if he had, he would have been my guy, because I really think what he's done on a significantly worse team than Cale Makar, not playing 65% of his minutes with Nathan McKinnon and being on a pairing with Devin Taves, has just been crazy. But yeah, I know you have a side here, and I'm definitely not in disagreement at all.
Yeah, speaking of Cale Makar, though, I mean, if you look at the players that he has more goals than, this from Drew Livingstone on Twitter. Cale Makar has more goals this season than Austin Matthews, Sidney Crosby, Wyatt Johnson, Matthew Tkachuk, and Connor McDavid. That's pretty crazy.
It's crazy. He's been great. Like, there's no bad choice. I just think him and McKinnon both get a lot of credit for playing with each other. We could go on about this all day, and same thing with Draisaitl in the MVP race. I think he's the MVP. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about how many players are coming in and out of the Avs lineup, how many different guys they've played. McKinnon doesn't play with those guys. His average line mates have still been drastically better than Draisaitl's. So I don't really get that part of the argument when you're you're not the one trying to carry these AHL bottom six guys. But anyways, that's a debate for another day. Maybe tomorrow on Future Files, we'll have to see what we think of the current hard odds.
You've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, they suck.
Or don't frame it that way. They're both so good. And I think the thing is, people probably that don't watch the Oilers think Draisaitl's played a little more with McDavid than he has this year. And that's kind of the other part of it.
Yeah, that has not been the case. He's been carrying the team in so many ways, man. He's
Colson and Arvidsson and yeah, a little different.
I think he's definitely positioned himself as the number one winger, or I guess center, but number one player outside of McDavid right now in the NHL.
Yeah, I think so. He's been insane. And I mean, McKinnon's proved more. Like last year, I thought McKinnon was a completely worthy Hart winner. So it's not like I'm low on him at all. But I think what Draisaitl's done this year is incredible. And he has like no empty net points, which, as we've talked about, has been his own fault. It feels like somehow, for as good as he is, he's had some ridiculous misses on the empty net. But if you take away McKinnon's empty net points, Draisaitl's stats start to look even more impressive.
Yeah, so as far as my bet for this game between the Canucks and the Winnipeg Jets, first of all, I'm betting that Connor Hellebuck will start in goal tonight. Nothing has been confirmed, but Eric Comrie started the last game, and while Hellebuck did have to come in relief of Comrie for around 10 minutes, Comrie did come back into the game and finish it. So I would suspect Hellebuck will get a start here in Vancouver on Tuesday night. And this one has actually come down. You talked a little bit about the movement. It's come down from where it was at minus 161 down to minus 155 right now. I think that's a very, very reasonable price to bet on this Jets team to win on the money line here tonight. I mean, they've won 6 of their last 7 games against the Canucks. They've won each of those games by 2 goals or more. They scored 4+ goals in each of those games. And there's just, Vancouver's just struggling so much on offense right now that I think this is just a terrible matchup for them, assuming Hellebuck is in goal. Of course, the Jets, they haven't been great in terms of 5-on-5 offense as of late, but I mean, they continue to be one of the best teams in the NHL this season, and seeing them at minus 155 on the money line is against this Canucks team is a little bit peculiar in my opinion.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot on this show, that really, if you were just betting every Connor Hellebuck start the last 2 years, obviously easier hindsight 2020, but odds makers just continue to not give him enough credit for the rate that he's actually winning games at. So yeah, I'm right with you here. I'm kind of surprised that it's come down to minus 155. So
they've won 18 of 23 games as road favorites this season. Far and away the best road favorite in the NHL. If you had bet 1 unit on them to win every game in which they were a road favorite, you'd be up almost 8 units, 7.75 units. The next best team is around the 3 unit mark. So they've been twice as good as anybody else on the road. Right so far this season. So you gotta like the Winnipeg Jets at minus 155. I think this one should be up in the minus 175 range, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, so here's the stats on Hellebuck's betting results from the last 2 years. I just pulled them up. So 75 and 34 straight up. $100 better would have made $1,900 just betting him in every single game. So never a bad strategy to just stick with him.
Best goalie in the league. But that pretty much does it, I guess, for today's episode of the Puck Portfolio. We will be back on Wednesday with another episode of the Puck Portfolio and a new episode of Future Files right here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel. But until then, good luck with your bets and gamble responsibly.